So the first question is, what is the Mother Goose? So for most of us, when we think of Mother Goose, we generally get an image that looks something like that, which of course has absolutely nothing to do with this project, so we're just going to move on. In actuality, the Mother Goose is an unmanned aerial refueling station that's designed to carry fuel to a mission site and circle in the air, waiting for smaller UAVs and other aerial vehicles to require refueling. So why is it important? Well, first of all, UAVs are a vital part of a modern military. Every modern military has some form of UAV. They have no pilots, so they are smaller, they're faster, and they're lighter than a conventional aircraft. And of course, there's no danger to a human pilot. Unfortunately, the smaller, faster, and lighter that you make a UAV, the farther its operating time falls. They just can't run for very long. So the idea of the Mother Goose is to refuel these UAVs while they are in flight so that they can perform long-range, long-term missions.
So our goal was to create a model of the refueling process that will help us to find the benefits and the limitations that will be in our system. We try to define the problems and to solve them, of course, and to simulate the refueling system, which we will explain later. As our Mother Goose, the refueling vehicle, we decided to choose the RQ4 Global Hub, which...
So, you might be wondering, well, why the Mother Goose? Why would we choose the Global Hub? Well, there are a few important reasons. It's got an extremely high weight capacity, so it can handle carrying a lot of extra fuel, which can extend the life or the duration of the flying of the circling. It's got a very high altitude range it can fly at because it has a very large wingspan in the range of about 40 meters or so, which is very big. So it can fly at many altitudes, which means it is compatible with many other UAVs. They can fly at the same altitude and therefore be refueled. It's got a very long endurance time, 30 to 40 hours, which means that, again, it can have a lot of time to circle, a lot of time to carry out missions, go farther, stay longer. And most importantly, I guess, is that the specifications for the Mother Goose were available to us. We didn't want to be guessing. We said, oh, well, I guess it can carry X fuel and it has X wingspan. We wanted to know exactly what the aircraft was all about, like specifications, wingspan, flight time, empty weight. So we used all those. It was very helpful. Our smaller UAV, the refueled, we chose the American Dynamics AD-150. Why, again? Well, first and foremost, it can only operate for 4 hours without any refueling. This is a very short time for a UAV. It can't go very far, can't circle very long, and it creates a need for the Mother Goose. And it's also a very fast, very multi-purpose UAV, which is good because then it will be beneficial to the Mother Goose. And it's got vertical takeoff and landing ability, kind of like a helicopter, same concept, it can just hover up, which means that while it's being refueled, it can orient its engine so that there is minimal effect on the stability of the Mother Goose aircraft. Going off the stability, of course, when you refuel, you're going to have issues with stability. The AD-150 is going to need to fly very close to the Global Hawk in order to transport the fuel towards it. That's going to cause issues with stability, with the airflow over the wings, stuff like that. So we need to figure out what that effect is going to be and how we were going to fix it. How do we do that? Math, of course.
So this, as you may recognize, is some math. And these are a lot of the equations that we had to use in order to calculate things like how to compensate for the effects, what those effects might be, and what the requirements for flight would be. And though we are happy to explain this after the presentation, it's not particularly relevant right now, and it's also incredibly confusing, so we're going to skip that. For now, all you need to know is this. Planes fly, don't question it. So to accomplish our goal, one of our objectives was to simulate refueling between the Mother Goose and smaller UAV. And we did this with a SolidWorks animation. And through our calculations, we determined that the best way for a smaller UAV to dock with the Mother Goose would be from below, and that it would fly up from there, dock with it there, and then break away and fly off, because this would have the smallest possible effect on the stability of the Mother Goose.
Yeah, the animation isn't working on this computer. Sorry. Again, if you want to see the animation, see how it works, come to us. We'll be happy to show you.
It's really cool.
So on the benefits side of the Mother Goose, there are several. First of all, this is a graph of the operational capabilities of several different missions. Now, there are a series of assumptions that go along with each mission. First of all, half of the mission time is spent in transit to and from the mission, as you can see with the diagonal parts. The UAV is flying out during this time and performing its mission during this half of the time. Second, the Mother Goose carries 8,500 kilograms of fuel, which was calculated based on its maximum carrying capacity and its empty weight. And third is that the AD-150 is refueled every 4 hours by the Mother Goose. Now, as you can see, the red area, which is the AD-150 alone, is capable of a relatively tiny mission compared to what these other two missions are. It's capable of 4 hours of flight and operating about 500 kilometers away from its base. Add a Mother Goose to that in the green line, and it's suddenly capable of a 40-hour mission operating 5,000 kilometers away from its base. And also, in order to study the stability of the Mother Goose, we simulated one mission with a fully fueled lone Mother Goose, which was capable of flying for over 100 hours at a mission 15,000 kilometers away from its base. And with that flight time, the Mother Goose is so efficient that it's able to circle around the entire Earth and then perform its mission before running out of fuel. So speaking of the fuel consumption, our second graph is the remaining fuel in the Mother Goose over the time of the mission. Now we have the same mission assumptions, and these are the graphs from the same missions. The red line, as you can see, the AD-150 burns through its 500 kilogram fuel reserve in a matter of 4 hours, which is tiny compared to what these two are capable of. With the Mother Goose, it falls just short of 40 hours, which is 10 times its original capacity. And the Mother Goose, of course, doesn't even hit the bottom in this 40-hour graph, because it's capable of over 100 hours of flight.
In conclusion, the AD-150, when it used the Refueling Mother Goose system, can have 10 times greater operation time than its original time, which of course affects significantly the performance and the abilities of the aircraft.
And with a Mother Goose, the AD-150 is capable of flying from any base in the world to any base in the world, as opposed to a range of only 500 kilometers. Now it's about 20,000.
From a surveillance standpoint, the addition of the Mother Goose increases the maximum area it can survey from about 5 times as much as it could cover when it was alone. So again, big effects, very useful.
There's a lot of people we would like to thank, such as the Technion and the Goose transportation and the SciTech staff, but we would like to take this opportunity to thank Alex, our supervisor, mentor, sensei, whatever you call him. He's the best, and that would never happen without him. And thank you guys for listening and give us your time. Yes.
Can you go back to that other graph?
Which one? First,
Right here.
This one?
Like, so, with the green line with the AD-150 and getting refueled by the Mother Goose, why does it have a drop instead of a go up, so down?
Yes. So, I guess the legend is a little bit confusing here. But the green line is the fuel in the Mother Goose. It starts at the same point. As it refuels, it drops 500 kilograms every 4 hours.
Okay.
Yeah, the drops are when it refuels the AD-150. This graph doesn't include the fuel that's stored in the AD-150's tanks itself.
The AD-150 graph would be just a series of the 4 hours. Anything
Any other
else?
question?
So I guess, I don't know, I'm just trying to figure out what the assumptions are here. Are you assuming there's any fuel used during the refueling process?
That was one of our assumptions also. We had a lot of assumptions we maybe didn't tell you about. We picked the most important ones. But yes, we're assuming A, that fuel consumption is consistent throughout takeoff and landing included, which we didn't have any method of calculating. There's no extra fuel used during the refueling process, and that the Mother Goose just keeps on using the same amount of fuel.
We try to avoid assumption, but when you talk about 8,400 kilos of fuel, the landing and takeoff not so much. Any more questions?